Today is Thursday, May 28th, 2020, and you're listening to What Just Happened, Project Wasabi's 10-minute recap of important events from around the world. Coronavirus Vigil. According to Johns Hopkins University, as of this morning, May 28th, 2020, just in the United States alone, so far we have lost a total of 100,442 lives, and 1,500 of these people were just in the past 24 hours. Over 100,000 dead. Commenting on this grim milestone, Dr. Sanjay Gupta.
None of that even matters here because this was not inevitable by any means. No one should ever say this was inevitable in this country. So many of these deaths could have been prevented. There was a willful ignorance in this country. In the end of February, there were people at the CDC, widely regarded as one of the best public health agencies in the world, who were saying it's no longer a question of if, but when this becomes a pandemic, no longer a question of if, but when this starts to dramatically affect the United States. And at that point, after that point, there was still really no progress in testing. There was no progress in trying to curb the mitigation in this country. There was a lack of seriousness about this all along. There were places around the world without a magic therapeutic, without a vaccine, without anything else that we didn't have as well, that were able to greatly, greatly mitigate this infection and the number of people who died. We got to learn these lessons. There's an arrogance sometimes in the United States that says we're the greatest country. Well, other countries did it better. We need to learn.
Throughout the United States, since the end of March, more than 40,000 National Guard members have been assisting with testing for coronavirus and tracing the spread of infection, as well as delivering much-needed supplies to food banks and assisting at voter polls when the scheduled volunteers failed to show, fearing, quite justifiably, coronavirus infection. In support of these efforts, National Guardsmen have been working since March 25, 2020. But President Donald Trump has ordered a hard stop on these deployments, effective Wednesday, 24 June 2020, which means that thousands of National Guard members who first deployed on March 25th will have only 89 days of duty credit, 1 day short of the 90-day threshold for qualifying for education benefits and early retirement under the post-9/11 GI Bill. After strong public criticism, the Trump administration is now considering whether or not to extend these deployments. More as this story develops. Minneapolis. In the wake of what many are calling a racially motivated murder, thousands of angry protesters of all colors, age, and ethnicity risk injury and infection taking to the streets to petition their government for a redress of grievances. But in the past 48 hours, peaceful protests have erupted into angry riots as civil unrest continues 3 days after George Floyd's horrific murder. Tuesday, the city of Minneapolis had fired 4 of its officers for apparently causing the death of 46-year-old George Floyd while he was detained in police custody. Background. On Monday, May 26th at 8:33 p.m., while sitting in the driver's seat of his dark-colored SUV, 46-year-old George Floyd and his 2 passengers are approached by 2 30-something uniformed cops, both wearing badges and short-sleeved light blue duty shirts over dark blue polyester slacks. The driver, George Floyd, is handcuffed and made to sit on the sidewalk with his back against the wall. Arriving 3 minutes later, 2 more uniformed cops exit their vehicle wearing black gloves, unlike the first 2 cops who initially made the stop to work barehanded. At 8:40 p.m. Minneapolis time, a disturbing cell phone video taken by Darnella Frazier shows the suspect is now face down on the ground, a bald Asian-American uniformed police officer holding back concerned onlookers as his fellow officer, Derek Shaven, a 40-something Caucasian cop, presses his left knee down into the neck of restrained George Floyd, who is pinned down and unable to move, the left side of his face pressed painfully into the asphalt. This unarmed, defenseless man lay slowly dying. The last thing he'll ever see is the right rear tire of a police black and white squad car. In the video, George Floyd can be heard choking, gasping for air, desperately pleading for his life, repeatedly saying he cannot breathe.
I can't breathe.
Bystanders now begging officers to allow Floyd his precious breath.
How long y'all gotta hold him down?
Editor's note. At this point, the suspect's body is completely immobile and physically disabled by police. Thus, George Floyd is no threat to officers and bystanders.
He a tough guy. He not even resisting arrest, bro.
His whole nose is
Fight with him? Bro, but why you just sitting there? He ain't doing nothing. Y'all put him in the car.
How long y'all gotta hold him down?
Mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Fry.
Y'all don't gotta put time.
When you hear someone calling for help, you are supposed to help. This officer failed in the most basic human sense.
It seems to this podcaster, if officers were so worried about their own personal safety, George Floyd was already handcuffed. All they needed to do is get him in the car. Also, besides strangling the victim, judging by the position of his left knee, it appears the Caucasian officer is trying to stop blood flow to the victim's carotid artery. On the video, police officers can be heard taunting George Floyd, asking him what he's on, saying, "This is why you don't do drugs, kids," then sarcastically telling George Floyd to just get up and get in the car. According to police, George Floyd died at the hospital a short time later, though when paramedics first arrived at the scene, they said George Floyd had no pulse and he was not breathing. More as this story develops. Attempting to undermine former Attorney General Jeff Sessions' run for Senate, President Donald Trump once again takes to Twitter. "Jeff, you had your chance and you blew it. Recused yourself on day one. You never told me of a problem and ran for the hills. You had no courage and ruined many lives. The dirty cops and others got caught by better and stronger people than you. Hopefully this slime will pay a big price. You should drop out of the race and pray that super-liberal Doug Jones, a weak and pathetic puppet for crazy Nancy Pelosi and crying Chuck Schumer, gets beaten badly. He voted for impeachment based on zero. Disgraced Alabama. Coach T. Tuberville will be a great senator." Donald Trump, Saturday, May 23rd, 2020, at 3:54 p.m. Orlando, Florida's former police chief, U.S. Representative Val Demings, confirms she is being vetted as a possible running mate for the presumed Democratic nominee Joe Biden. Other potential running mates include Senators Elizabeth Warren and Amy Klobuchar, as well as former Georgia House Democratic leader Stacey Abrams. In Georgia, the Ahmaud Arbery murder is currently under investigation by the state-run Georgia Bureau of Investigation. A third suspect, whose name has come to light, William Roddy Bryan, is being held on charges of felony murder and criminal attempt to commit false imprisonment. Earlier this year, on that tragic day, the suspect, William Roddy Bryan, took that infamous 28-second viral cell phone footage that shows his accomplices hunt down and kill the African-American runner back on Sunday, February 23, 2020. The first two suspects arrested, Gregory and Travis McMichael, the father and son who were seen on video lynching runner Ahmaud Arbery, were each charged on Thursday, May 7th with murder and aggravated assault. Questions surround local authorities as to why the arrest was made 2 weeks after the incident. According to the Arbery family's attorney, the Department of Justice and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation are investigating this as a hate crime because it was based on prejudice against color. Named after the county where this incident happened, Clayton Daily News says the police report shows Gregory McMichael, who was in the flatbed of the pickup during the shooting, told police that the third suspect, William Roddy Bryan, had used his own vehicle multiple times to try and confine and detain Ahmaud Arbery. To repeat, one suspect, Gregory McMichael, told police? To my layman's ear, it sounds like 64-year-old Gregory McMichael may have entered into a plea agreement and is now cooperating with law enforcement authorities. More as this story develops. LA weather today should be sunny and warm with afternoon temps in the low 80s, then cooling slightly tomorrow. And like old friends, the mid-70s will arrive Friday afternoon and probably hang out through most of the weekend. On a lighter note, Rabbi Shlomo Riskin celebrates his 80th birthday. Singer-songwriter Gladys Knight turned 76, and John Fogerty, founder and lead singer of Creedence Clearwater Revival, turned 75. And to these good people who bring such joy, Project Wasabi wishes a happy birthday. Oh, Rudy Giuliani turned 76. You've been listening to What Just Happened, Project Wasabi's audible recap of significant events from around the world. On behalf of Project Wasabi, this is Brian Newberry saying thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.